Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, my name is Skylar Santana. And on this channel, we talk about all things watch related. And today's episode is going to be an actual focus on micro brands, independent brands. And what I want to do is I want to show you guys the watches that I've done collaborations with that have left me or have let me keep their watches, right? That's my way of showing appreciation to the brands that actually let me keep the timepieces. I don't by any means require to hold on to the pieces. I've sent a lot of watches back, but when a brand gifts me a watch to the channel, I don't like to just create content of a review and then move on and sell the piece. I am a watch collector, and for the most part, I do like to keep the watches. So what I will do is I will do episodes like this dedicated to showing the timepieces. And you guys know that I show the timepieces throughout. You know, when I get a new watch, I'll do an unboxing, I'll do the review, I'll talk about it even more so on the live stream. But I want to have a conversation with you guys about micro brands. I want to know, first of all, what is your favorite micro brand as of right now? Who is floating your boat the most? And that doesn't have to be necessarily a micro brand that you're interested to get a grail piece in. I also have micro brands that are going to be grail pieces and I hope to do collaborations with moving forward. But I want to know who's on your radar and why, because the way that I like to weigh and measure a micro brand or independent brand is also by what they're actively doing right now in the community. You know, what's going on with them? What are they doing with their timepieces? How are they improving? How are they interacting? What are they doing as an overall? Megazoid is in the building, brother. You never miss a live. I love it. Good morning, sir. I got some watches, Mega, that I'm going to be going through, and I just said that I'm going to be focused on the micro brands and the watches that were gifted to the channel. And the reason why I'm making a episode dedicated to that is because I want to show love. I want to give back. They were kind enough to donate a watch to the channel, and therefore I don't like to just do a review and move on. I like to showcase the pieces, and they are actually in my collection. And as you guys know, I'm actively working on being most knowledgeable with a micro brand or an independent brand. They intrigue me the most. They have so much flexibility in their manufacturing of watches. They really listen to the community. And this is what this channel is. It's a community-based watch talk channel, right? And so for me, it aligns with the goals for the micro brands. Of course, they're entering into the space and trying to give us something new. But I feel that when it comes to a community-based company or brand, they're heavily invested because part of their marketing, right, is only doing online. They're not in ADs, right? So they have to sell their watches, they have to get their exposure. So they almost are connected to the ability to connect with us in order to sell their watches. Of course, we have the watch shows that they take part of, but if anything, they have to connect through community chat like this, and it's in line with this channel because this is all about community. Johnny, what up, brother? How are you? Welcome in, everybody else. So we got a couple people in, so I want to show you guys, first of all, what's on the wrist is still the notice, of course, on the Montrose strap, and we showed this yesterday. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. For those who missed yesterday's episode, yes, we will do a close-up on it. But I got a whole bunch of other watches that are micro brands that I'm going to be showcasing. I've got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this makes 8. So we got 8 micro brands that we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about also some of the improvements, right? Because that's important. I know that I'm very excited and I say a lot of positive things, but that doesn't make a watch perfect. There are always improvements, and we, of course, have to unpack that. And that's the most valuable thing, not only for you guys to understand when you're saying, hey, I'm interested in this model. I hope some of my favorite content creators did a review on it. But you guys also want to know how the brand can improve. The brands themselves should be heavily invested on improvements and shouldn't get offended with any content creator putting those lists of improvements, right? And I don't say weaknesses for a reason. Words have power. I say improvements because I feel like this is where the watch should really improve. And when I do an improvement, I don't try to stick to something that could be subjective. I try to keep it more objective and state something. So I'm not going to say that a watch should have this movement. Well, I have maybe one watch that I may recommend that, but that's not to downgrade or say that, oh, this watch is not good because of that. I like to stick to more of a fact than everything else. JC Watch, what's up, brother, man? Haven't seen you in a live chat in a minute, man. You're all over Watch Crunch, bro. I love what you do. So this was the notice that I received and unpacked yesterday. I have it on the Montrose strap. I do want to show this because it's kind of like the best of two worlds, showing you guys this new FKM color from Montrose versus this pilot style that they did. And this is an everyday watch. And I only spent 24 hours with this watch, yes? So I have to have a little bit more time to deal with the watch before I can really list some improvements. But I will say this about the Notice collaboration with Watch Crunch, aka the Flyboy, the bracelet. Okay, so we had screwed in links for the bracelet. I sized it yesterday for my wrist. I'm trying to stay off of the bracelet because I don't want to do any scratches before I do a deeper view. However, it is screwed in. Now, here's the deal with screwed in links, and this doesn't go for Notice. Just because a watch has screwed in links doesn't mean that it's better than split pin. Why do I say that? Tolerances on a bracelet for screwed in links have to be just right. It has to catch into the grooves. It has to come in and out of the link very easily. Chances are you're not adding and subtracting a link after you put it on, especially if they have tooled micro adjustments, and a big especially if it has a on-the-fly adjustment, which this bracelet to this watch does have. However, yesterday when I was sizing the bracelet, I did notice that the tolerances on the screws were not that good. They were not terrible. Terrible is when you try to manipulate the screws and they're just stuck in there. They don't go in and out very easily. Sometimes you start stripping the top of the screw and it can turn into a nightmare situation. That wasn't the case, but what I can say is that on the Notice, it was the tolerances. If it was a scale from 1 to 10, I want to say it was like a 6 or a 7. I did have a little bit of a difficult time taking out some of the links. Some of the screwed in links were, I think one of which didn't come out completely. The others, all of the other ones did. Now, when I size a bracelet, I usually have to take out 4 to 5 links. And just so you guys know, on the 6 o'clock position, if you have to take an odd number out, take more links from the bottom. That's how you get the clasp to be flush and in the middle. Now, when you're looking at your wrist like this, it's gonna be a little offset, but when you turn your wrist like this, like how you would when your arm is down, it should be dead center. And when it has push deployment buttons, you wanna try to center that. That's just the way I like to wear my K-Swiss. But just know that removing more from the 6 o'clock is a thing. And that was the only improvement thus far that I could find from this Notice collaboration was the tolerances of the screws. So if they're happening to be listening to this, and I will mention this, I will mention that in the review, that's something that I think that they need to look into. Other than that, the bracelet is phenomenal. And they have a proprietary clasp. I showed that yesterday. It actually functions very nice because when you press for the diver extension, a lot of the times, watch brands will have their clasp where you do press the button to do the release. Oh, my San Martin's like that, right? But then you could just push it back in. Now, that gives it a chance. Maybe somehow if you're using your wrist and you're fishing for stuff and it clips in by itself, then you have to take it off and readjust it. The Notice clasp doesn't move unless you press that button inward and outward. So it's a very, very nice clasp. It's streamlined. It's push deploy button on it. Female end links, solid, doesn't jingle jangle. So other than the screwed in links, that was the thing. And that's something that you guys have to understand for any brand that are doing it. Just because you see screwed in links, you might want to see if a creator has done a review and then maybe skip to the bracelet if you don't want to see the whole thing and just see what they say about the tolerances of the screw that goes in. That's it. Let's see here. Love the Montrose. Yeah, man. So I actually have another watch. So we're showing all micro brands here. I love the Montrose strap. It's fantastic quality, fantastic packaging. I just love the brand. He actually did leather too, which we did a review for. That leather was just as supple as the FKM. And that was what I was a little nervous about because for me, Montrose straps, which is the strap that's on here, this is the brand new color, is synonymous with having a very soft rubber on there, right? He does like a nice little taper to achieve this and everything else. The only thing that I could say, I mentioned yesterday the curved, but I also think that on the tabs, You guys know how sometimes this traveling one, and they're both technically a travel, right? Some of them have a fixed here, and then they just allow this to travel. I think that on both, they should have a little nub on the underside of it where it catches where you want it to stay, and this way it has no issues moving at all. So little tiny improvements. Other than that, this strap is phenomenal. You guys, if you haven't tried it yet, and I don't go on record heavily suggesting a strap. Actually, yesterday, somebody had noticed my bun strap when I put a bun strap on this. I posted a whole bunch of photos on Watch Crunch because I'm going to be wearing this a lot. In fact, I might be wearing this all next week just so like that I could really get it in-depth feel for it. And I put it on a bun strap. Somebody asked me, hey, you know, I guess they didn't really know what bun strap was, but I recommended Vario. And Vario, in my experience, has been the best bun strap leather for a watch. And that's important because on a bun strap, there's a lot of material. And if that leather is not supple, it's going to be really weird and firm and everything else of the like. So I definitely recommend Vario for the bun strap. If you're looking for FKM or if you're looking for textured leather, Montreux all day long. He does it phenomenally. And I'm absolutely in love with that. Let's check it out. JC Watch, yes, I actually have seen your post on Montreux as well. Dude, everybody who I've recommended Montreux for has been in love with it, so the strap is cool. The strap is definitely cool, and the color is, it's on the nose, right? Now I'm messing with a lot of green, but I also have the bracelet, and I have the Zero Pass strap that's leather. The Zero Pass strap is butter soft. It's insanity, man. Like, the Acronis shop, his leather straps are phenomenal as well, man. And that's something that we're going to be focusing on moving forward for 25 because as you guys know, I'm going to slow down my watch purchasing. I'm going to clean up my act as far as my strap goes. I'm going to find a very organized system. I found that having a kind of like a binder situation with like plastic sheets in it and then just put it by size is probably going to be my nicest way to do it. I hope I don't regret missing out on the notice. So, Ben, you don't have to feel FOMO is a real thing in this world, man. And here's the deal. Don't feel bad for missing out on anything, right? If you didn't purchase it yet, that's for a good reason. I saw a creator, I don't know if you guys seen, I forgot the name of the channel, but he was a little perplexed about getting a Rolex, what was it? A Rolex, one of them. But it had a lot of history behind it that was tied into war, and he was really like conflicted with getting it because he didn't want to represent that. And my comment to him was, dude, if you're having this much confliction about purchasing the watch, that means you're just not ready for it, and that's okay. As far as missing out, Ben, they're doing another run of it that's going to come out in April, and it's going to be by order. So you missed out on the limited edition version, which was 99 pieces of this notice. Pilot watch, it's a phenomenal watch, don't get me wrong. And actually, I'm not going to say need, I kept saying need, but I made sure to remember to say that I wanted a pilot style Microbrand because that's what I was missing. Now, this is nice because usually on a Pilot, what happens is that either it's overdone on the size or it's overdone on the details, and I think that this is the nice in-between. In fact, some people weren't sure if this was a diver or a field watch, and I think that that was the point. This is meant to be like an everyday watch. If you're putting on a suit, you may have a little bit of an issue with it, but as far as more of like a Gata, 100 meters of water resistance, subtle in the case size of being 38 to 40 on the bezel, this hits right at home. I feel like all the details in it has been done very nicely. We have some textured in the middle of it. It's an obvious Pilot watch once you see the hands on it, right? That oversized hands, the oversized hours. You have to be able to read a Pilot watch very easily. It was executed very well, and it has a more sleek design for an NH movement and everything else. So let me drink some water. What was I talking about? Lost my spot. But yeah, man, I'm going to be looking at this watch. I can already tell you guys that the details on it is phenomenal. Let me catch up on chat. You're absolutely right about the clasp and where it should lay on the wrist. Yeah, listen, man. Wear it however you want to wear it. Maybe you want the clasp to sit on the side of your wrist. But for me, I'm like, I spend a lot of time when I'm sizing my bracelets. If it's not perfect, and it's a matter of also how tight I like my watch, right? There's another thing about how a watch sits on your wrist, right? And I'll put this watch on. In fact, we'll take a look at this Flus next, as I have some things to say about it. But just to show you guys what I mean, right? The clasp is sitting in the center. More so the deployment is towards here, towards the middle, right? And what I like is I like it to be loose enough where it's not strangling my wrist, but if I do the shake downward, it doesn't fall completely over. Now it's wintertime, so maybe I got to tighten this up a little bit, but you guys get my point, right? Like I size the bracelet to the point where this sits in the middle and then it doesn't fall past. I hate when the watch falls all the way down here. Like it has to sit behind my wrist bone. So that's just one of my things. Always back off the screw and let it drop into the screw channel and then screw it in. Yes, that's another thing too. If you're finding that there's way too much resistance when you're screwing in one of the links, if it's a screwed in link, and you feel like there's too much resistance, you got to back it out because that just means it didn't catch right. JC, thank you. Oh, and you just reminded me. Now, what I can't say, which I was really happy about, is on that Notice bracelet, when I did have a little bit issues with the tolerance, now on the other side of the bracelet, there are holes where you can push on that screw to kind of get it out if it is stuck. So they were very smart to do that. I don't think a lot of people do that all the time. And I think that that's a missed opportunity unless your tolerance is absolutely perfect. And I'm just checking another watch that I have. That'll be another example of that. That would be the Erebus that I have. And yeah, so it's only on one side on the Erebus, but we'll talk about that when I bring it up. But yes, if you're finding that you're having some tolerance, don't force anything. Don't force it out. Don't force it in. If you force it out, you're going to strip the top of the screw or it's going to slip and it's going to scratch the bracelet, right? So back it out, back it in. Let me begin. Hey, Sky. Ted has different buckle color options too. Oh, so nice. That was one of the things that I recommended as well, because when I had my Montrose strap on my Mark Time. I knew I was going to make that mistake eventually. On the Mark Time, he didn't have a bronze material color, so I actually used the Mark Time for the buckle, but it's nice to know, JC, thank you for the heads up that he has different colors for it. Strapco has a binder system for straps and bracelets. JC, send me a link to that, please, at Watch Crunch, as I know you're on there. I definitely want to check that out because that's exactly the system that I'm looking for. So the next watch that we have that I want to show you guys is the Flus, and I have the review video pretty much done for it. You guys will see in great detail what my improvements are, but I've shown this watch before. We're going to show it again. The Blancpain type of feel, vintage inspiration, very nice watch. Now, we can clearly see that there is no date wheel aperture on this watch, and we are getting a Miyota 9039. So that's one of the things that are important as we're starting to graduate and as we're starting to get a little bit more particular about our watches, yeah? We don't want ghost date wheels, right? That's for the more affordable rate, right? Because that makes sense. In order for them to give you the best cost, they have to save money and everything else, so they'll buy more of a bulk, and if it has a date, it has more options, and they'll put it even on a dial that doesn't have a date wheel aperture. But we're not getting that from Spinnaker. Spinnaker is a very fun brand to own. They have a lot of different things, a lot of collaborations. You guys seen the Ghost watch that they had. Very, very nice. So again, we're going back to the bracelet here. Now this is tooled adjustment for this, right? Which is fine, right? I prefer to have the on the fly, of course, and we are having a quick release system on here, so that's a plus to have. But again, talking about the bracelet, this is a Beads of Style, right? One thing that I found for this watch, and I mentioned this in my review as well, this part here, the secure, is loose. So sometimes you can catch yourself on your material, on your clothes, on your jacket. Now it doesn't release all the way. That's all the way, and it clicks through for that because it has a secure here. But what I think went wrong for this watch is it needed a security bump here, just like how it has it here on the clasp. I think it need one up here to keep this down and or shift this over a little bit further in towards the middle to kind of give it that extra security so it doesn't come up like this. So that's one of the small things that I found for this watch. Other than that, they did this as a home run. It has a great movement in it. It's a high beat movement. Miyota is heavily respected. It keeps things pretty smaller in stature for the thickness. They did a phenomenal job with the curving to keep this curve like this rounded type of shape for that Blanc Pond type of feel. The colorway is, in my opinion, absolutely beautiful. They have a couple of different colors on there. The crown is a good size for it and everything else. So I thought that this was a very nice iteration. I actually won this on a watch meetup. So this whole episode is sponsored, just so you know. Like most of the watches I didn't purchase, they were sent to me. Again, for those who just came in, the reason why I do an episode like this is because out of respect for the brand, they gifted the channel a watch. I want to go over them again, and I need some content to talk about if we're talking about watches. So it's a mutual benefit at that point. Now, going back to the notice before we move on, we are getting an NH movement on here, right? And I'm completely fine with that. I have to also take a look at other things outside of it to make me excited. There's a lot of innovation within it. More so if you look at the clasp, we have a proprietary clasp on there. The bezel, guys, so yesterday I did a bezel click on this, but when I tell you guys, I did it more so when I went home too. Guys, this thing is so crunchy that you could feel crazy vibration when you're turning the bezel on this. Like, it's scary how crunchy this watch is. And it has been done very, very well. It is a little bit on the thinner side, like your finger catches here and it doesn't have like a thickness to that actual bezel. But when you talk about a crispy bezel turn, while we're looking at this, we got some crown engravement for this notice. Super, super crispy. And this is not even by the mic. You could probably hear it. Insanity. Like the whole thing almost vibrates when I turn it. So that was another thing. And I think they did a very good job with the date wheel aperture, keeping it very, very subtle. They did, as you see on the outside, they trimmed it with black. Very smart move. It's very easy for you to say, okay, the indices have some stainless steel outlining on it, so you could have said, let me match that up. They didn't do that, and they didn't. I know that was intentional, even without confirming it, because they kept it very subtle. It looks very good, and as far as a date and day and date, they did this very, very nice. I'm very, very impressed with this watch. So let me see what you guys are saying. Different buckle, strap, code. I'm caught up. Okay, cool. Keep it moving, Skylar. Keep it moving. So notice. Then we had the floose, and those were the only. Was there anything else? The bezel on the spinnaker is a little, the tolerance is rough. Like, what do I mean by that? It takes a little bit more gusto to get it going. Other than that, very, very nice. No back play. It settles back because it has like a lot of resistance to move forward. So it almost wants to settle back on its own, and it does. But again, we're nitpicking for improvements, and that's just one of the things that I want to mention. Other than that, the design language is beautiful. They have a couple of iterations and colorways for this, so it is a limited time. So if you're interested on it, you kind of got to jump on it. And if you like that Blanc Pond type of feel, that's what attracted me the most is that bezel insert. And you guys know that I love that because I did that on my SKX 007. I added a bezel insert just like that. That's my favorite type of bezel insert, in my opinion. And it was very nice to see this brushed ceramic on here. This is also very nice, but to have that 3D effect, I'm just in love with that and everything else. So moving on to the next one. I've shown this a lot, but I got to show it again. Again, Miyota movement in here, 9039, right? So there's no date wheel aperture on here. Mark time. I've done couple of things for his watches. I've done a couple of reviews. This is a minimalistic type of vibe, right? So here's the deal. This is why I love the watch so much. Where's my cloth? Hang on one second. I want to talk about this because this, I think, becomes a category in everybody's collection eventually. And when you have a minimalistic vibe, some people do like it, but they don't like the fact that they can track, what is that? Hold on one second. All right, we'll take a look at it. But some people don't like that they don't have a way to track the minutes on the outer edge of it. But this actually, I don't think I could get it on camera, unfortunately, but on the outer rim, there are grooves, like braille-like grooves, that are so subtle that you can't notice it when you're looking at it straight on. Oh, that wasn't the dust, that was the, that was the logo. So this is a nice in between game, right? If you want something that looks super minimalistic, but it drives you nuts to not be able to set the minute hand exactly, there are minute markers on this. It is done in a braille style. This is a Miyota 9039. Not an off-the-shelf watch. I think it was executed very well. This is the bronze iteration. He does have stainless steel. I matched this with a red Montreux to pull from that second end here type of thing. And everything on the outside here, all of this sandwich type of loom, lights up, BGW9, and it looks really, really cool. You guys ever seen like those photos of like the UFOs landing on the farm and then it has that ring? That's what it reminds me of. Like the ring on the outside just lights up. These thick bar hands that are almost like the size of a pilot style watch also light up and illuminates very well. So I really love Mark Time. You gotta slow down. Mark Time. Okay, Mark Time. I really love Mark Time. I love the guy as a brand owner. I like his watches. I like the evolution of them. He's now working on an M6, which he's taking the inspiration of this design and he's putting it more of in a toolish type of watch. This is more like a dress watch type of vibe, but like a sporty kind of dress watch in my opinion. But love it, love it, love it. He put a phenomenal movement in here. So this timepiece means a lot to me and I'm really, really appreciative to have it in the collection and part of my Microbrand adventures. Next up, let me see, make sure you guys are good on chat. You guys are just maxing and relaxing. All right, cool. That's cool with me, man. Just max and relax. What should I show you guys next, man? Oh, let me know, guys, the ones that are in chat, what Microbrand is exciting you right now? Who's doing it? Who has your most interest? Not so much Grail Watch, right? But who is doing the most for you as an enthusiast and what's the reason why? Because some of the things that I look for Microbrands is their interaction with the community, with creators, and everything else of the like. You guys could probably guess who my favorite one is right now. It's tough to pick it out, but I do have a favorite as of right now. Speaking of up and coming Microbrands, of course, we have this. Now, I showed this yesterday, so I'm not going to show it so much, but Noctua, I always have to get him in the mix. It's a brand new Microbrand. You probably haven't heard it before, but he is doing some very nice things, and he's taking that SKX and taking that Sin inspiration if they had a baby, but there's enough change and iteration to it, and I missed a boat on the 007. When I purchased my 009, it was around $400 to $500. The 007 was like $1,000, so this was a nice kind of, when I missed that opportunity, this kind of fills it in. But what I like is that it's different enough where I don't feel like I'm repurchasing the same watch, right? That's the reason why I kind of forgot about it. But having this kind of homage inspiration build for it, very, very nice. NH movement on here. We actually have a 38, so it's not going to have that ghost date wheel, so that he paid mine to that. And I think that moving forward, we're going to see very nice things to it. I would love to see JP, which is Noctua watch. I would love to see JP as a brand owner try to transition to Miyota as fast as possible. High beat Miyota. I understand that it's very easy for me to say that and it's very difficult to execute that, and there is a cost thing. So there is a reason why, you know, you start off with a particular kind of feel and kind of build and everything else, and then you graduate from then. So very, very nice, very, very toolish. I absolutely love the brand. I love the brand owner too. You guys know I make things very clear. I am very biased when it comes to that watch, that one in particular, because he was my boy before he even launched it. From there, I think I'll show you guys, you know what? Let me show you guys the watch that I picked up on the last windup, because that was the photo that I put for the thumbnail, right? Windup being a super exciting thing. I saw a lot of different design language. I mean, there was 150 brands, so not a lot of them are trying to like separate themselves, man. So you see so much exciting innovation within movements, within design language. It's a lot to take in, which is why I've chosen to pick this category. There's a lot. There's high-end watches, there's luxury watches, there's vintage watches, there's affordable watches, there's independent brands. Some of them are affordable. There's a lot. For me, I want to focus on independent brands and narrow down, and I think they give me enough interest, and a lot of them pop up out of Venetianico. Venetianico is going to be the one that is exciting me the most right now. And again, when it comes to that community type of vibe and what they're doing a lot of collaborations with creators, but also they are listening to our demands. And how do I know that? They're Narede. They actually generally did the Narede in a 42. A lot of people felt like that was a little too big. They came down in size. Their bracelets, which this is the Canova bracelet, right? A lot of people wanted them to graduate, or rather, I should say, wanted them to transition to a bracelet that had micro tooled adjustments at least. They did that, and they brought the size down for the Narede. So they are doing things where they're listening to their responses. They're not just flooding the market with a bunch of creators. They're actually listening to that feedback, and they're continuing to innovate and come out with new releases. Right now, they're working on a malachite for the Narede, right? And I actually learned something that I'm going to show you guys on another watch. But this was my first Venetianico, and this, to me, spoke a lot of volumes. This is their Aventurine edition. Now, in stark contrast to the Mark Time watch that I showed you, this is a true minimalistic. There are 0 markings within the edges. And when you're doing a dial that is a precious stone, it's hard to get everything to stay into place. It's hard to get all the indices and everything else. It can be done, but it requires a little bit more attention to it. Aventurine, especially being a glass material, so it is hard to work with, but it's absolutely beautiful. It's a love it or hate it type of relationship, in my opinion. And I was okay with getting a super minimalistic type of vibe for the dial. I absolutely love it. Now, the bracelet is an additional cost, which I kind of felt the type of way. I felt that they should have included the bracelet because this is an NH movement on it, and this was around $500. So my opinion was they should have added this bracelet. But, you know, in addition to that, when I got the bracelet version, my wife bought this as a gift. It didn't have half links on it, right? So if at the very least you're not going to include the bracelet, now don't get me wrong, the leather that came with this Venetianico was absolutely beautiful. Leather, Italian leather, very supple. The colorway was very nice. It was well refined. This was an additional cost, and it didn't come with the half links. You guys know my rules, and it doesn't go for just affordable watches. It especially goes for independent brands. If you're gonna do a butterfly clasp on your bracelet, you must include half links in it, in my opinion, because you know it's just not gonna fit right. And that I battled with that being a little loose on my wrist. I actually ended up getting the half links for this, but for sure, one of the improvements that I could say for this watch is if for the Canova bracelet or for anybody else doing a butterfly bracelet, please, for the love of everything that is watch enthusiast likes, include a half link for a butterfly clasp. Other than that, very, very nice bracelet, articulates very well. It is polished in the center, so you're gonna receive some scratches on there. Most of the watch is polished. This is super dressy, right? I wore this to a wedding. I feel like it was absolutely a stunner. Other than that, I love the watch. And this is where I really felt that having an NH movement for me wasn't a big deal. And I could easily say that, well, the watch is not worth that price because of the movement that's inside of it. I get that argument. However, after owning it and I got it as a gift, I said, you know what? I would have paid the price for this watch knowing that it's an NH movement. That is up to you. The rest of the watch's value has to make sense. And the biggest argument is, for some collectors, the movement is everything. And I get that. If the movement is everything and you only want the highest echelons of movements, then that for you takes away a lot before looking at the rest of the watch. But the refinement, the build quality, how it feels and everything else, because I've had a lot of NH movements from affordable brands, it doesn't feel like that. Even when you do the keyless work function, there is a difference in quality feel going from an NH from a Microbrand and an NH from an affordable brand. And another example of that is that this is regulated. This is an NH movement, but it's regulated plus or minus, I want to say 10 seconds a day, I think it is, or maybe it's 6, but there are special attentions that they show to it. I don't think that this NH movement is regulated. So as far as improvements go, I would say yes, Venetianico, they should regulate their NH movements for what they choose to do, and it shouldn't be an increase in price. In fact, I think that the bracelet should be included for the price that it is, and I think that the NH movement should be regulated. Those are my opinions. Maybe they can't make it happen. Maybe that will bring the cost up too much, but you know, favorite watch or Microbrand is the Ocean Crawler. I've heard that a lot. They have some crazy designs or details. I I wear mine at least once a week out of the month. Nice, nice. Yeah, the Ocean Crawler, I've heard that's a fantastic watch. I do want to look into that, Johnny, but thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I am heavily interested to know what Microbrand, because that's going to be on my radar now, right? I want to look at the Ocean Crawler now. I want to see what the deal is with that. I want to know what the feedback is for what you guys are wearing on your wrist. So on the terms of Microbrands and Venetianico, for that reason, you guys know that I received the Nene Audio, which is the gold-plated dial. Now, again, after listening to the community for the upgrades, you guys can see the Sansovino bracelet is on here, which is very nice. It's a push deployment clasp, micro adjustments. No quick release on either one of them. So another critique that I could give for Venetianico moving forward for their bracelets, and they're on their way, is to give quick release here, and also do a diver extension for the clasp, right? So continue to keep putting into the dial. They already are working on smaller. This is a 42. They have a 38 now in the Nerede. I'm pretty sure that they're going to continue with that, because this is a gorgeous, gorgeous watch. But if you have like a 6 or a 6.5 inch wrist, it's going to be too beefy for you. And I'm talking in likes of what people are saying to me. You wear the watch however you want to wear it. Maybe you don't mind it being super big on wrist. No problem. Do so. Wear it however you want to. However, I can understand that for most people, they're going to want to receive something a little smaller. This is an absolute killer dial, tungsten bezel insert, SW200-1 movement inside. It does have the date wheel aperture here instead of the 6 o'clock. That was also kind of a thing for me. It doesn't really matter. I think that overall, it's a stellar watch. Now, here's the thing that I learned about Venetianico. As you can clearly see between this watch and the Aventurine, they're a company of dials, yeah? So when they're working with certain materials and they're doing their indices, what they do is they float the indices over the dial, right? So these indexes are attached to the chapter ring, which allows them to work with a lot of different special dials, whether it be Malachite, Tiger's Eye, they work with a lot of them. And that allows that floating style to not only make it easier for them in the manufacturing process and open up all those doors, but it gives the watch depth, right? It gives the watch a lot of depth. When you go from the applied indices to the applied logo, you now have that depth of where the dial's sitting, the applied logo, the indices, going up to the actual bezel itself, and it makes for a very gorgeous effect for watches. And I really, really love what they're doing and completely support them all the way up. And I think that they're gonna come out with a lot of things moving forward, a lot of different watches, and I hope that I can continue to do a collaboration. They have other other watches that I haven't seen or on the channel, or I haven't done a collaboration with them yet, rather. And I'm interested to see their super thin dress watch with the Musu black. Ooh, what is that? 94% dark, or is it 96? It's insane. It's insane, and it's absolutely beautiful. And again, that's a minimalistic type of vibe. So that is what it is. Now, the last watch that I want to show you guys is an Islander. And this was the only watch of a Microbrand. Was this the only watch? Yeah, this was the only watch in a Microbrand space that I actually purchased from Windup. I controlled myself. I had a lot of watches come into the channel, a lot of affordable watches that I purchased. The year prior, I kind of went crazy. I'm now over, I'm around 50. I'm probably a little bit over. So again, my plan for this year is to slow down even more. So as time has gone on, I've realized that there's a lot to learn. As I'm experiencing these watches, I'm realizing that there are a lot of features to be learned, and there's a lot of people doing it. So I want to take some time to sit back and really unpack what the next move is. So like that, I really have more information before adding a watch in. That being said, October in the last New York windup, I was ready. And there's a long story. I'm actually making a video of the full story of this Islander watch. It's actually pretty interesting. If you want to hear it, let me know in chat. It's actually a very long story, kind of funny, but it actually highlights how Island Watch as a brand is a great company. Also speaking towards their, what do you call that? as their service, their brand service, right? And that's the reason why, going back to the Venetianico, my wife purchased that, and they did above and beyond to communicate with her, to make sure she was happy with the purchase, to make sure she was comfortable. And that's something that you only know once you kind of either run into an issue, and or as a creator you're in communication with, and you can kind of see how they communicate back and forth. But when I do come across it, I'm going to highlight it. An Island watch, man, Mark, I can understand why so many people are supporters of him. I already knew that prior because of the list of watches. And then now he also has other micro brands within his watches in his company, but he also has his own brand. And I'm talking specifically to just the Island watches even. He has such a great spread of prices for his watches. He has a lot of design language that's not too on the nose. He has watches that are on the nose that are intentionally there to replace or to improve watches that we like. The easiest target to say is the SKX that we already know. So it was on my radar, man. And as far as going around, there was a lot of different brands that will be on my radar for this year. I'm going to save everything for the end of the year before I want to go to the shows. I want to touch and feel the watches before making a decision. But I actually picked up eventually, again, it's a long story, the ISL 245 Miyota 9075. And I had to be part of that cult, man. I had to get myself an Islander watches because I really loved what the brand was doing. I really saw how well and how successful they were with communicating with the community. And he has great promotions as far as an investment watch goes in a micro brand space. He often runs sales. He often runs promotions. If you wear an Islander to the show, he'll give you a $50 credit. And I think he gives you an extra promotion for if you want to reinvest that $50 into one of his watches. But ultimately, man, I had to find the one for me, and the ISL 24. Now, this is a true GMT, Traveler's GMT, right, if you will. And this also comes in a different iteration for a three-hander, which is a little bit thinner. But I don't mind a little bit of a chunky monkey. I still feel like with the design on this case, it still kind of feels like it's thin on the wrist. But I was super excited to get this particular model. I love the white space on there. I love the soft color palette that they have within it. It gives you like a vintage, but not too vintage type of vibe. Now, you might be, maybe your eyebrows up and saying, hold on, I haven't seen that exact one. I actually changed the bezel insert in it. I'm a nutcase, and that was now the one that it came with was actually loomed. It was black, and it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I make sure to always state that because I don't want anybody to think like, well, he switched it out because it was no good. No, it was fantastic. It was nothing wrong with it. I'm just a psychopath, and I like to get in my head, and I felt like something with a little bit more color to make things pop, and I drew inspiration for the color inside of the dial in order to highlight that and everything else. And now I'm truly, truly in love with this watch, and I've wristed this a lot this year already, and it's a unidirectional, bezel, very, very nice, and Miyota movement in it as well. And again, the Islander, Spinnaker, they all have everything from an NH movement all the way up to Miyota. Going back to the Noctua, that's what I would like to see from him. I'd like to see his brand have a spread from NH movements going into Miyota finally in the chapter. And that's what we see a lot with microbrands until we hit a different tier. Now, what also makes the Islander very great is the prices. I've seen the 9075. You guys know that the 9075, once it was created, it was a thing, just like how the NH34 really paved the path for a lot of affordability in gaining that GMT. The Islander is one of the brands that took the Miyota 9075, and there's a lot of brands that do it. But the difference is that with the Islander, he has it at a very, very nice price, a very, very affordable range, right? We're talking about $500 to $600. But that's just, it is what it is once you graduate to that movement and once you step into that space, much like how if you went with an SW200, you can expect a watch to be anywhere from, I want to say 800 to 1,000 plus, like maybe like 1,200, 1,300, depending, man. There's other things that go into it too. So it's not to say that, well, anybody selling a Miyota 9075 above that price is robbing you, because there may be other things that they're doing into the finishing and adding other things to make up for that price. But he tends to keep things nice and tight as far as the cost. In fact, the green version dial to this at one point was like $350, about $350. And that's the price of a Seiko movement. So if you pay attention to the website and you pay attention to his channel, he announces things and he's very transparent, which is another thing that a lot of people like. He doesn't go on, make videos and say, you know, this watch is the best thing since sliced bread and just end the video. He says, guys, I'm making this video and I'm selling you watches. Like that's the point of this. And then he proceeds. So there's a lot of transparency with the brand. We've seen a lot of transparency with other brands. Christopher Ward comes to mind with their 3 times rule, which is also very attractive to me. You guys know that the Belcantos is actually one of my go-tos. I'm also looking at Formex. I'm looking at Formex Essence. There's Wise. So I don't know if I can flat out say what my grill watch is next. I'm curious what your guys' grill watch is. I actually did a video of this watch at the wind-up where I was holding the watch and I was talking about it. It was crazy because I was just watching that video the other day and I was like, oh snap. I had forgotten that I was actually, I know I picked it up. I forgotten that I was recording while I was holding it. And at the show, I fell in love. So for them to reach out to me and say, hey, thank you so much for making the video on this watch. Thank you so much for featuring us on your wind-up video. We want to collab with you. Pick a watch. It's yours and make a review. So when that happened, I asked for this. They said yes. And I was like, whoa, hot diggity dog. Like I really felt crazy appreciative of it, man. And it's I don't want to say it's a grill watch. I might have said it was a Microbrand grill watch before, but because of how I obtained it, did it take away from it? I don't know. I guess I could say it's a grill watch if I want to, because collecting is personal and it should be for you guys as well. Very, very personal. So however you want to name it, whatever you like to do, that's okay. We can have a discussion about opposing positions on it. But at the end of the day, collecting is very, very personal. And it should be, because they're in your collection and you're going to be wearing them. So however you want to do it is what matters the most. Currently waiting on a strap code 2 Angus J from Mark. Nice, nice. And you know what? I saw the collaboration with what's his name? TGV, right? His collaboration. That is, so I loved everything about the language design of that watch. I think it had a black and a white dial to it. It is a little bit too beefy for what I want to rock at this point. I'm pretty sure that watch is heavy too, but if they were to somehow manufacture that to be small and still have it kind of have that boxy feel, but maybe be more streamlined to the size of this ISL 245, then I would probably be all over that. And I'm a big fan of TGV as well, man. Like, I really like his videos. He's been on YouTube for a long time and everything else. And I like the full production that he does to his videos, man. When you talk about separating yourself and having a brand identity to your channel, it's awesome. It's awesome. Currently waiting. I read that. So that's it, man. That's all the watches that I had for you guys to showcase. Again, I mentioned this before, but we are going to be doing some more collaborations with brands as time goes on. The beginning of the year, we're going to be focusing. We're going to also have affordable watches. That's always going to be a slice of the channel. But just so you guys know, I'm looking to be very well educated and well versed in the Microbrand space. And I think that that's a very big hill to climb as is, because there's so many of them and they could pop up overnight. So, of course, we probably want to spend a lot more time on brand establishments, right? Microbrands that have been around for a while, because there's just more to talk about and everything else. But I also have love for ones that just pop up. And the Erebus that I showed you guys, did I give you improvements for this? So the Erebus for this, listen, I really, when it comes to on paper things, the Erebus left very, very, very small room for listing any improvements. You have the on-the-fly adjustment. You have the quick release. The bracelet is screwed in. So that's what I wanted to say. Sorry. In the beginning of the video, we talked about the notice tolerances for the screwed in links. That was a little bit of... Now, here's the deal with that. You're only going to size your bracelet once, right? So is it a make or break situation? It's not. But somebody like the Erebus, who came out with their J-style bracelet, the tolerances on the screwed in links in this were butter. They were absolutely perfect. So when it comes to the specifications for this watch, when it comes to everything on paper, you're not going to find something about this watch or any of the iterations of it that are technically wrong. It's finished well. They put a lot of attention into the hands that they used for their watches. A fantastic Gata watch. You have screwed in over here. It's a little recessed at the crown just to give it that little bit more dynamic and push the crown more so in. Again, we have on the fly here. We have screwed in. Like, I've not had better screwed in links on a bracelet aside from here. I would imagine that if I were to try and experience something better, it would have to be an actual luxury brand. And I was glad to hear that because, as you see on the side here, there's nothing to push that screw in out on this end. So if it gets stuck on this side, you're kind of beat. But I'll tell you right now, it catches and the tolerance is crazy. Almost no wiggle, no jingle jangle from the bracelet itself. It's pretty solid. We have a Miyota movement on here. Clearly, this is the 9015 because we see the date wheel aperture at the 6 o'clock, which most people would agree was the best. So fundamentally, this watch, the only thing that you're going to have an argument about is it has no brand history. Yeah, well, no duh. Most micro brands don't. And its own identity, right? When we talk about the Omega, which one does it look like? The Omega Aquaterra? Yeah, the Omega Aquaterra. Listen, when they produced this watch, they clearly stated that they were taking inspiration from more expensive watches and bringing it down to a more affordable rate. And I believe the Aventurine is like $500 or $400. You get a Miyota movement and then you get specifications to the max, everything to the T. Like you guys saw brands that I just showed you that have been out longer and don't have as many specs that are correct, in my opinion, in a watch even still. So I expect big things from Erebus. They are technically a brand new, not brand new, but they're new on the newer side when it comes to micro brands. So super excited about it. I love the dimensions that they've chosen for this Gata watch. It really does achieve what it's supposed to. And then again, as far as Aventurine goes, since we have both of them here, if you wanted an Aventurine that wasn't a minimalistic and it does have indexes, then that would be the way to go. And this is a perfect example of a super minimalistic. Both very nice, both strong in their own aspects. The bracelet has a lot more attention on the Erebus as far as checking off boxes goes. But aesthetically on the outside, just looking, I love that continuation for the butterfly. Again, I wish it had half links that came included with the bracelet, and I think that we find a lot of strong suits with the Erebus, and I've been very, very impressed with their watches coming out. And we can say that the diver watch was it was safe, right? This one's a little bit more adventurous. I think, and I'm predicting that the next watch that they're going to come out with is going to be their own language design. And that's the only thing that Erebus is truly missing. Now, as far as brand history goes, going back to Erebus, I argue this. You can say that Jody's channel gives you some brand history. Now, what does brand history give you? It gives you some comfort to know that a watch company has skin in the game. Well, knowing that Jody is a watch reviewer and of affordable watches, and he takes apart, these watches through the reviews, it's safe to expect a good quality watch out of him, right? So he, in replacement of that brand history, gives you that comfort to purchase the watches and not be fearful that you're going to get something that's inferior. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but for me it does. So I feel like that's kind of like a replacement for it. But, as time goes on, they'll get their brand history. But what they do need to do is they need to separate themselves even more so in design language, because the greatest achievement for, like, micro brands are just like watch creator channels, right? It feels weird to not have a watch on. Hold on. Micro brands are just like watch creator channels, in my opinion, right? I consider myself a micro brand of channels, of watch review channels. The biggest thing that I can do as a channel creator is separate myself and separate my content from other watch creators. You want somebody to be able to just, without even seeing the channel, if they overhear it, oh shit, that's Skylar. I know the way he talks. I know what he talks about. Maybe it's music, maybe it's thumbnails. There's a lot of things that you can do to separate your channel. And this is not about channels, but stay with me. I think that that is one of the greatest achievements, aside from what I say is important, and I'll list the things of what I think is important for a microbrand from beginning to end. Number one, it goes back to what I said about being a part of a community, marketing yourself. And Christopher Ward does a hell of a job of that, right? And I don't just say that because they're one of the big dogs. Like, you guys know Mike Pierce, right, from Christopher Ward. They have a lot of fantastic representatives, but dude, this guy does like a million shows a year. He's there. They're showing you the watches. Sometimes they're not even selling them. They just want to show you. They want to talk to you. They don't want to be at the register ringing them up. No shade, but they have found value in getting in front of you, talking to you, doing interviews. I've seen him done a lot of interviews with small channels, big channels. I was at the show. So I give them flowers for doing that effort. And then also he's a part of Watch Crunch, Instagram. If you message him, he'll message you back. That means a lot, right? Before we spend the money with a microbrand, you need to give that comfort to the market because you don't have the hundred of years of experience to lean on, right? So I feel like the luxury brand status have left themselves open by leaning on that too much, right? And that'll always be there, and there'll always going to be people that appreciate that the most, and I get that resonates with me. But at the same time, when it comes to affordable brands, super affordable brands, micro brands, and luxury brands, the super affordable brands leave themselves open because they can pack more value, in my opinion, or they can stretch the bar more so if they were to add small things that wouldn't bring up their watches dramatically, right? Then you enter micro brands in the middle where they're listening to us, getting their feedback, improving their watches, listening to the community, and then you have the luxury brand sector that it's like, you know, I'm going to build this watch and I have a lot of history. And yes, they make very, very nice timepieces and their movements are stellar and everything else normally. But people want to be heard, I think. And I think that moving forward, that's the direction of the enthusiast. When you get people like us that are super, like you guys are on here and watching me rant for an hour. I'm nobody. I am nobody, right? I'm not a famous person. I'm not somebody with a crazy name. You may like my content and it resonates with you, but you are a watch enthusiast as nerdy as I am. And I know this because you're watching. So you want that feedback. You want that interaction. That means something to you. And clearly. So, you know, that's where microbrands shine the most, and they have a lot more flexibility to pivot very, very quickly. A microbrand can go from sticking to one movement to the next, one design to the next. They can pick up on trends very fast. They have smaller batches. So it's going to be, I foresee microbrands being a very, very heavy topic moving forward. And what I was saying before is that brand identity is going to be scarce as that goes on because we see a lot of brands popping up, and you have to separate yourself as much as possible from the movement to the language design. And I would say the language design is probably more important. Like, there's certain watches that you guys will see like from a mile away and say, hey, that's that brand. I know it. That is the greatest achievement right after brand awareness, brand communication, and everything else. So most important thing is the interaction with the micro brand. Second important thing is separating yourself as a brand. And then your quality and everything else has to follow the two, right? I can't really say that that's third. I have to say that that has to be worked on at the same time. And that also not only includes using high quality parts, but also enter in with all of the features that we want. Again, going back to this Erebus, like it has the quick release at the lugs. It has the on-the-fly adjustment. It has screwed-in links. So just the bracelet alone, he checked off every single box. From there, we move on to the watch and we look at all the things that are inside of it and spent money on more expensive hands. Finishing is well done. Case is well done. Screwed-in crown, slightly recessed. Like, you see what I mean? Like, you have to start as a micro brand checking off all of these boxes, because I feel like the expectations and people, the biggest subject that we're talking about as enthusiasts, whether you value this or you value, it's just that, it's value, right? So I feel like coming into the game, that is probably going to be like the thing to look after and everything else. So that's my little rant. No grail for me. Does that mean no more after that? So No. Okay, hold on. So my aspiration is Zelos. Yes, Zelos is another brand that I have my eye on heavy. Zelos and Wise. I need a Jack Mason on the channel. There's a lot of brands. Zelos, 8-Day, Mirage, Sapphire. You can't go wrong with any Zelos, bro. Like, when I say, okay, so that is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. You see a Zelos and you know it from a mile away, which is insane because they don't always do stuff that are completely different. However, when they compose the watch entirely for its language design, the end result is that it's different enough and there's something about it. Maybe it's just the Z logo, but there's something about it that says, that's a Zelos all day long. You could scroll through real quick and see, oh yeah, that's a Zelos. Big reputation in quality, big reputation in spec monster. And you could see that all the names follow this, right? And that's why I think that Erebus is going to do big and great things. Wise, right? That stainless steel that they use that only Rolex uses, and everything else that they put embedded in their watches. Another brand that we're talking about. So you follow that trail and you're going to know who's going to be up and coming, and you're going to know who you're going to potentially be interested down the road. Now, you said you don't have a grill watch. Does that mean no more watches after that? No, not necessarily. That could actually mean the quite opposite. If you don't have a watch that you're locked into and you're not going to do anything else until then, you might end up purchasing more watches indefinitely. You may not, but we have to see how the year progresses. For me, I already told you guys, I'm sitting back and I'm watching, I'm studying. I want to get watches on the channel and do the reviews, and that has been the biggest accelerant for my level of understanding of what I personally want to value moving forward. Just getting experiences with the watches that I'm getting to review and take a very close look at. The next thing you could do is go to shows for that, but there's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of motion, there's a lot of things going on in shows, and I'm referencing more so the New York show, right? The New York show was crazy. And part of my story that I'm actually editing that you guys are going to hear, where's my Islander watch? On my wrist. Part of the story that you're going to hear about this Islander watch when I release it is that when I went to the Islander table, and his table's always mobbed, there's a lot of distractions. Of course, touching and feeling a watch is going to be the best thing, but spending an hour with the watch is different than spending 5 minutes and then you feel overwhelmed, and or your mind works differently when people are left and right of you and everything else. So that has been the advantage here on the channel, and that's what I want to give you guys. Like, hey guys, I spent time with this watch to really give my analysis to it. I'm going to be very truthful and forthcoming for the improvements, because that's nothing but a positive for the brand and for you guys and for myself and everything else of the like. So I got to get Zelos on the channel for sure. I will reach out to them. I held back on reaching out to any brands moving forward because I have enough right now in inventory, but I want to say 2 to 3 months down the road, I'm going to open that door up, and it's going to be laser focused on Microbrands to experience. Vincent, what's going on, brother, man? I appreciate you coming in. Currently waiting on a strap. I read that. Mark has great collaborations with other brands. That's another thing too, man. Okay, so let's switch gears. What's happening right now in the marketplace? So we're seeing a lot of I think I said I was going to sign off like half an hour ago. We see a lot of brands, and I want to talk about this because here's the deal. That's on par. That's a collaboration, right? Do I have any other collaborative? No, that's it. Aside from the watch collection roundup that we're seeing now often, which is also really cool, I'm sure you guys are pretty much interested to see what your favorite content creator has in their collection and what they feel about it in the story. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But we're seeing lots of collaborations, and I am the person that likes to guess and try to project. The next collaboration that I foresee, and I don't foresee it taking long. If you take 1 + 1 and you get 2, Mark from Island Watch put out there that he's looking to do collaborations with people who do, watch channels like this and maybe other brands. And then Erebus just did a review of his Islander that was given to him from Mark, right? Do I have to say it? I think the next collaboration we see is from Just One More Watch or Erebus, the Erebus Islander collaboration. I think that would be insanity. If you took the two together, and now we're talking about Erebus not being in the market for too long. He's been in the game behind the scene, but Mark that's where he shines, right? Getting access and distribution, and it's like watching Shark Tank and seeing who you want to collaborate with because they have access to this. If they both combine forces and create a watch, ooh, that might be crazy. And I would say, don't make it a limited run. Don't do that to us. Don't do that to us. Make that unlimited. Make that a thing. And I think that that would be a crazy, crazy situation. And I think that that's what we're going to see more so of. We're going to see a lot more collaborations. It's coming up a lot more. Spinnaker's done collaborations. Notice does a lot of collaborations, clearly. I think that that's also a very smart move for yourself in the market that we are now in for microbrands as well, right? Now the end user gets the best of both worlds. You now have another brain to collaborate with and expand on, and I think that that's a power move, man, because we've seen what's his name, the guy that does the modification, Loomshot did his collaboration with Islander. I think that that was successful in what they produced. I foresee Erebus and Island Watch coming out with a Monstar watch. And I almost want to make a call to them both and say, hey, connect the dots. But we'll see. It has to make sense, right? At the end of the day, it's a business, it's a B2B. So if it don't make sense, then, they can't do it. So that's it, guys. Signing off now. I appreciate you guys, for all of you that stuck around for over the hour. Yeah, man, this was really exciting. I will come on live. I don't know when I can come on live next. I will do it as much as I can. But stay tuned to the channel. We're going to do some affordable watches, like I said. And as we graduate throughout the year, micro brands, independent brands, and everything of the like. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for spending your most valuable asset, which is time. And I hope to see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a lovely Sunday.